Hello and welcome to the Coaching Mixer. I'm your host, Elena McKernan,
And
and
I'm Erin Aquin, your other
your other
host.
host. Erin, before we started recording, Erin was like, "You can intro." And I was like, "Oh, maybe it'll be less awkward," but it really wasn't. Just
Part of the
same amount of
fun.
awkward. Yes.
Then you know we're real.
Yes, there we go. What are you drinking today, Erin?
Okay, so we had talked about gin, and I was like, I think I might have made this before, but it's like my favorite summer drink. So this is like an
Ooh.
Aperol spritz, but as a gin and tonic. So instead of like normally, I think an Aperol spritz is Aperol and like Prosecco or something bubbly.
Mm-hmm.
This is Aperol, gin, and tonic, and then I burnt a little bit of rosemary over top of it from my garden. I'm like really vibing with rosemary. It's like my herb to this week. So
Ooh, I
yeah, and
love
it
that.
might bug me because it's like floating on the top, but it makes it
Might
pretty.
tickle your nose. It
Yes.
is
Yeah.
beautiful. Oh my gosh, it just like the light just caught
Yes.
it and it just completely like changed.
Yes.
Mm,
These are
mm,
the I love
mm.
these glasses too. This is like I
Yeah,
drink water out
it's
of these.
beautiful. That looks amazing. I'm very impressed. I have a confession.
Yeah. Uh-oh. What are
I
you drinking?
thought I thought that I had what was it? Were we doing rum or gin
I
today?
think gin. Yeah, I had it
Oh.
on my calendar as gin, but
Oh
maybe
my
we did gin
gosh. I
last
have a
time.
double confession then because I thought maybe I had a stroke. I don't know what happened to me. I thought we were doing rum today and I don't have rum. So I was like, oh wait, no, was it gin? I don't know. Whatever happened, I don't have anything related to it. Either rum or gin. I was like, I don't have this. So I made with the ginger liqueur. I guess I need to go to the liquor store. I made with the ginger liqueur and peach juice,
Ooh.
which was like kind of weird and interesting, but way too sweet. So then I was like watering it down. I also may have started drinking like 15 minutes ago because there was too much and I had to like keep watering it down because it was too sweet. Anyway, disaster cocktail this
No,
week,
I
but
like
there is
it.
something.
I almost at 4 o'clock, I was like, I could make one now and just test it. And I'm like, no, I think it's the summer, but it's a
Maybe not that.
weekday. I'm
Yeah, maybe we
still,
do like a slightly later version of this one
yes,
time where it's
yes.
our second cocktail and see what
Yeah,
happens. That would be pure chaos, but it could be fun.
I love it. And you also have a topic for us. And you
Yes.
haven't told
Okay.
me, so it's a total surprise. I'm very excited.
And now I feel like a little bit sheepish. I
Hmm.
hope you like it. Okay. So I was just thinking about mentors and teachers and
Mm.
how like I think it's a pretty natural progression for students to like kind of always have someone they're looking up to, but then reach some points where maybe they diverge from those mentors or maybe they see like, oh, those mentors are actually human and I don't like that. And it can be kind of a confusing and complicated process. So I thought it might be interesting as people who probably have been in a role both as like student and maybe also mentor and who have learned from people who are people and like
Yeah,
imperfect, like
yeah.
to just talk about how we navigate that. Because, like, I think my personal feelings have shifted quite dramatically
Mm.
over time. So I just kind of something juicy that might be fun to talk
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. I mean, what have you noticed has shifted for you over time around either being looked up to as a mentor or as looking up to other people as your mentor?
I think for me, it's much easier. This is maybe an identity thing we'll get into when I'm halfway through the cocktail.
Hmm.
It's much
Love
easier
it.
for me to see
Stay
myself
tuned.
as like, yeah, as like this student who's like kind of looking up to people. And maybe that's changed a bit. I don't put people on pedestals anymore in the way that I used to. But I do think like in my development as a coach, I sort of had to go through the experience of being very disappointed in some of the people that I looked up to when I realized, like, oh, they are human, they have flaws, they don't operate exactly as I would.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and going through like that disappointment and maybe even like frustration or wishing they were different.
Mm-hmm.
And now I still think like it's important to hold our peers and the industry in general to a high standard. And also, I am not as bothered by that anymore. I'm like, yeah, of course they're human. Everyone's just like trying to figure this out. Nobody really knows the right way to operate. We're all kind of making shit up as we go. So I feel like I'm a lot more relaxed, I guess, around my mentors, and it's much easier for me now to like take the parts that are helpful and leave the parts that aren't.
Yeah.
What about you?
I mean, I love what you just said because I think it sort of it's been my experience. Like I've had spiritual teachers and like I've had like
Hmm.
pretty serious commitment to people who then turned out to, as you said, be very human.
Yeah.
And the first couple of times that I was really felt like let down by a teacher or a mentor, I actually think coming into the coaching world, I know some people like have their coaches on pedestals and like think that, you know, whatever school of thought they learned coaching from, like that person's infallible. But I remember having like a moment with um, someone in a coaching setting who was, I definitely would consider a mentor.
Hmm.
Um, and they said, basically point blank, after, you know, we had spent tens of thousands of dollars doing their trainings and all the stuff. Very last day of one of these, like, kind of advanced trainings, said, I am making all of this up. Like, all of these things I just taught you are my thoughts.
Hmm.
And it's not like a haha gotcha moment. It's like, because I believe these things, I've created this whole world and a whole school around this particular teaching. And
Hmm.
I remember her kind of like just saying that. And I felt like tremendous permission to actually become like the whole training was about like thought leadership. And I was like, oh, she's not saying go parrot what I've been teaching you.
Right.
She's saying, I made all of this up with my creative mind and found things that worked for me in my life and have helped a lot of people. I hope you go do the same.
Hmm.
I found that so liberating. And I know a lot of people have different ideas and relationship to that person. And I'm not like, if anybody had like some kind of trauma thing with this person, you know, I can't say that this is more important than that. But like for me, coming out of a context where, you know, I had a lot of yoga, almost guru-y type spiritual teachers, to hear everything that you've invested so much of your time, energy, money into, it just made it all up. And
Hmm.
how, as like, this is how powerful your mind is. When you
Hmm.
believe something and you get behind it, you can make anything happen. And I was just,
Yeah.
this is very, like, I thought that was very cool.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's sort of, it's interesting. I mean, I've said this before, I think with you, it's all very similar to like the practice of magic. Like you're
Yeah.
calling something into being that isn't there,
Hmm.
believing it so hard, you're aligning your life to it. And I think that it's beautiful to have mentors that can be examples of that. Where I think it's problematic is when you're just kind of borrowing their thoughts and their beliefs and their system and
Hmm.
believing that because that particular bubble of stuff works for you, that the person must be perfect and everything they have to say on every topic must be perfect. Because I had another moment later on where someone was reflecting back to me this person's relationship advice. And I was like, that those were her thoughts about it.
Yeah.
I would never want the kind of relationships that she has. And I guarantee a lot of what she taught 10 years ago is probably not what she's saying now.
Yeah.
Like let her evolve and don't hold on to something that helped her figure out the life she was in.
Right. Yeah.
So it was, yeah, that's, I don't know. That's kind of where that's how I think about it, I guess, now.
Hmm. I think that's such an empowering way to think about it. And it's interesting because I think like even 5 years ago, I I know 5 years ago, like I heard some of the people that I look up to talking about some of these things. And for me, I was like icky. Felt icky to me. I'm like, well, of course, like it felt like it was coming from a place of like, don't criticize me, which
Right.
it may or may not have been.
Yeah.
But now I think what feels the most empowering to me around this, and that's not going to be what's most empowering to everyone, but like what feels most empowering to me is identifying if I feel a sense of frustration or disappointment toward the person who I am like looking up to
Mm-hmm.
as like a little signal to me or like a flag that's like you care about this. Maybe you're being called to lead here. Maybe you have things to contribute in
Mm-hmm.
this area. And like that shift for me feels really good and really interesting.
Yeah, and I mean I think where I've seen myself get into trouble and I've seen like other people obviously kind of fall into this is like when you think that because someone can teach about one topic that they somehow know everything. And I know that that's like very simplistic and no adult would say, "Oh no, of course, like that would be stupid." But I mean,
Yeah.
I have watched like I wouldn't take parenting advice from someone who didn't have kids
Hmm.
because it's theoretical.
Hmm.
But it doesn't mean that like if they are a master in some other area that I wouldn't totally follow their protocol for that. But I might
Right.
have to say like they don't have this other factor in their life that I do.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm probably not getting up at 5 in the morning to like become really good at martial arts, even if it's what my martial arts teacher says you should do.
Right.
It's like very convoluted. I guess the drink is starting to work.
No, not at all.
But I think it's like, I think what people start outsourcing their own authority and their own specific situation to, well, this is what the teacher said I should do.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, yeah, it's easier to just follow someone else's plan, but it probably needs like a certain discernment based on what your life
Hmm.
looks like and what's realistic for you and your energy. And yeah, like I wouldn't build my business the way the person who founded Google did because that's not
Yeah.
relevant to me.
Hmm. And you still might find, I mean, I don't know about the founder of
Probably
Google
not Google.
necessarily, probably not, but like you might find some things that
Yeah.
using your discernment, you
Yes.
then filter through your own lens and you come to. I think part of what helped this shift with me and what I see in a lot of newer coaches or just people in general is they are so harsh with themselves and perfectionist about
Mhm.
the tools that they're learning. Like they use the tools not just as like a mechanism to bludgeon themselves, but harm themselves with like how rigid they are about like learning perfectly.
Mhm.
And so then I think it's very easy then to project that onto the teacher and be like, well, you're not applying this in these rigid ways. So like, what's up with that? But I think, and some teachers like might play into that. I don't like, I'm not saying that it's all on the student necessarily. And also, I think for me, things shifted when I just became kinder to myself. I like chilled out a bit
Yeah.
in terms of what I expected from my teachers and my mentors. And I was much more able to accept them as human and just be like, oh, yeah, like they can come up with a brilliant idea and not apply it to 75% of their life. And it's still a brilliant idea that I will use my discernment to use in certain areas. And I would also never want their life in these areas because I think that there are ways to do better.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of times, like people who are excellent teachers and excellent mentors, you know, they have a way of explaining things and taking an idea and turning it into something that many people can utilize. But usually the way that they got there was not by actually following that teaching. They tried a
Right.
whole bunch of other stuff that like helped them formulate it. And a lot of times, even then, it's still very theoretical.
Hmm.
Um, and what, I mean, what you just said is like, I feel the same way about listening to other people's opinions. I'm just like, I don't put a lot of stock in opinions of people whose lives I wouldn't want.
Hmm.
And if I look up to someone, it's usually not because like I judge a spiritual community based on the people in that community, not usually the teacher. Of course, the teacher has
Hmm.
to say something that has like some kind of transmission to me, but if I would never go like to a yoga class where like everybody's like sad and checked out and on their phones. Even if I thought the instruction was good, I would be like, something weird is going on here.
Right.
I'm here for the field of attention, not just for how specific and anatomically correct the teacher is.
Hmm.
So I think it's kind of like there is a relationship between like the teacher and the community or the mentor and the people around them. Because just like coaches, it's like you could be technically the most precise, incredible coach who follows all the rules of whatever modality that you use. But if you're the clients around you, the students that you teach are not moving towards what they want in their life,
Hmm.
are you really like, is that good life coaching? Because you
Hmm.
technically executed it correctly.
Hmm.
So I kind of always like look at like how much are the people changing in the ways that this particular school of thought was supposed to help them.
Yeah. I mean, I've had that experience as well in the reverse where there's been a coach or like a coach or leader who
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, they're okay. Like I could take them or leave them.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not like the level of skill that I might like to see, but they create like an amazing community. And I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a part of that. I've had
Yeah.
that experience before as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that to me it just like says something more. I told you about this experience I had. I went to this workshop where the first full day of the workshop, the facilitators just invited everyone to introduce themselves in a way that they had never introduced themselves before. And the
Hmm.
whole first day, 8 hours, was, I'm going to say maybe 10, maybe 12 people introducing themselves.
Wow.
And I mean, I'm not a therapist, so I don't think like I probably wouldn't need to repeat that experience. But their attention and the safety that they created was not like a technical skill.
Hmm.
It was not I mean, it was, but it was not like okay, everybody, let's recap how we were able to sit here in basically total stillness and completely hear everything that these people were saying. Like,
Hmm.
that is actually just years of experience. And that's some kind of like a collective field that's happening. Um, so even though it maybe wasn't like okay, here's the 10 takeaways I got from that. I was like, these people are the real deal.
Yeah.
They are good mentors if you want to learn how to hold space while people tell you the most difficult things they've ever experienced.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's a okay. Let's maybe can I ask you this?
Yeah.
How how do you work through like a major breach of integrity or a major like fall from grace with a teacher or a mentor? Like
Ooh.
somebody's maybe not even just teaching, but like preaching something. And
Mm-hmm.
then something happens and it comes out that they were living in a way that's totally not just like a little bit like, oh, they were working on it, but like it's a total opposite, it's total opposition to what they've been teaching.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Have you ever had that
Um,
happen?
huh. Um, so there was, I mean, sort of yes and sort of no. I think maybe not quite on that scale. Like no like secret lives that I'm aware of that I'm like you were intentionally misleading people.
Right.
I think that my answer to that might be a little different. Like for me, I do think like intention matters in some regard in terms of like what I want to support and what I don't want to support and what support means to me. Um, but I do think like in 2020 when there was a lot going on in the US around Black Lives Matter and there was the horrible police murder and the police murdering a black man.
Mhm.
The life coaching, there was some weird stuff though. Like the life coaching industry did not handle that, navigate that very well, in my
Yeah.
opinion. And one of my teachers at the time, in particular, I think wasn't very adaptive or responsive to the needs of her students.
Mhm.
And in a way, like her teachings it didn't it felt she felt it felt like she was very reactive
Mhm.
to invitations to step up and to like examine how she was operating and to make some significant changes um and in my mind that is like a misalignment of integrity because I do
Mhm.
think her tools if applied to this situation would have really helped her respond in a different way um and I think she was on her own timeline and her own process with that because she did ultimately, I think, practice, discernment around that and utilize some of her tools. And she became less reactive and she actually like integrated a lot of what people were telling her. Um, I'm trying to think like what my experience of that was. I certainly had feelings of like disappointment, a little bit of disbelief, a little bit of frustration
Mhm.
um, in how she handled that. And at the time, I don't think I had the reflection of like, oh, Elena, like maybe you have something to say about this, or maybe you have something to contribute. Um, I did continue to learn from her. Um, but I do think it was a good eye-opening experience for me of like I can't pedestal like don't put anyone on a pedestal because everyone is human. Um and if she had not reflected and made some adjustments to how she approached her business and like what she offered her students and the support she offered her students, I think I probably would have looked elsewhere ultimately. I think I was in a certification of hers at the time. So I was like pretty locked in and kind of in the mindset of like, well, I'm going to get what I can get out of this.
Mhm. Right.
But I think had I did go on to do a master coach certification training at her company, and I think had she not made those adjustments,
Right.
for me, it's not like I would have felt the need to like punish her in any way, or I mean, not that she even knows who I am, but like, like I don't think it wasn't a reactive thing, but I think for me that would have been information for me that like I'm happy with what I have learned, but I need to expand who I'm learning from, if
Hmm?
that makes sense. That feels like a kind of long-winded answer, but that's the most direct example I can think of at the moment.
Yeah, because I don't think it's long-winded. I think it's like actually super helpful to think this through because it highlights, I mean, it's really hard. The thing is, it's really hard to not just be like, oh my gosh, I'm getting so much from this interaction. And
Hmm.
this tool is like affecting my life. It's hard not to see the person who's teaching you that as like the best teacher in the world, the best
Yeah.
process, the best like I think it takes sometimes these experiences where like they don't handle something that's actually really, really important in a way that makes sense to you, and it shows like where their lack of understanding is, or their lack of just like being in touch with the world. The world. I'm like, what's
Hmm.
happening in the world? There's a lot of people
Yeah.
who really choose like not to do that, and they have reasons that they like for not doing that, I guess. Um,
Hmm.
it's tricky, but I think sometimes it takes those moments to like remember that I've been getting nothing but like amazing information and experiences with this person. It is hard to just stop yourself from and be like, oh, they're human. They're probably
Yeah.
up in some way or another.
Hmm.
Because you've never
And they
seen
have
it.
blind spots.
No, they have no blind spots, because look at how much my life has changed in relationship to what I've taken from that world.
Hmm.
I have a spiritual, it's somehow I have a spiritual teacher now who I really adore.
Hmm.
And in my mind, I'm like, I know this is a human.
Yeah.
I've had like heart to hearts with this person. I don't think I have him on a pedestal of any kind. But I notice in myself when someone's like, oh, I don't like his teaching, or I don't like resonate with how, or I like outright think that, you know, the way he's teaching this is totally wrong and not helpful at
Hmm.
all. I'm just like so taken aback. I'm like, oh, but
Yeah.
he's so humble, and he's not trying to force it. He's like non-dogmatic. I'm just like, oh, but that's why it's
Hmm.
so easy for me to feel the level of trust that I have for him, because he's never forced me to do any. I've had teachers who have strongly suggested things and not forced me to do anything, but like
Yeah.
I've had much more rigid teachers in my life.
Hmm.
So I think it's funny where I just like sometimes have to be like, this is my teacher for this topic.
Hmm.
I really appreciate and I like this person as a person. And I love the way that they teach. It's like the perfect way for me to receive the information I want to receive from them. And they couldn't tell me about how to parent. They couldn't tell me
Right.
about some other aspect of my life because it's not there. They could coach me on it,
Hmm.
but they couldn't give me insights, generic insights about parenting, because they don't have that information.
Hmm.
I have to tell myself that sometimes. I'm just like, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's such a power, like it seems like a simple reminder, but I think what that's actually doing is it's like they reminding you that they're human and also
Mhm.
reminding you that you can trust your own
Yeah.
assessment of things and that there are some things that you are an expert on that they are not.
Right.
And so it's that discernment that we're talking about.
Yeah.